Local. Start. Yes. 8 seconds. 9 seconds. 10 seconds. This is the Home Server Show. It's episode number 225, recorded on Wednesday, May the 29th. It is the Microserver Comparison Show. Welcome back to the Home Server Show. I'm your host, David McCabe. I've got a full house for you tonight, and I'm thinking if you're listening on audio, you're going to want to head over to YouTube and check out this video. I'm sure we're going to have a lot for you tonight. Mr. Chris Kinney is sitting, let's see, on the video. You are to my left, Chris. How are you doing tonight, sir?
Good. How are you, Dave?
I'm very good. I see you in the workshop there. This is manly Home Server Show tonight.
Mad Scientist Workshop.
That's it. All right. And, of course, my usual suspects, Mr. Jim Collison sitting right there to my right. How you doing tonight, Jim?
Greetings, Dave.
And Mr. John Stutzman, you're becoming Mr. Podcast, John.
Oh, well, I don't know about that, but how you doing, Dave?
I'm very good. Thank you, gentlemen, for coming on. John, you are the microserver man in the homeservershow.com forums, and that's what we're going to be going over tonight. We're going to be doing, make sure my video is right. Okay, we're going to be going over a lot of microserver stuff. You've been at the pen, John. You've really had the writing bug, I would say, going on with homeservershow.com. We're going to be talking about that. We're going to hint at a little QNAP that Mr. Chris Kinney is talking about, and we're going to talk a little bit of Meetup, and we've got a little bit of news from Mr. Jim Collison. It's a very, very full show. I think we're going to take this to the limit. But guys, I'm out of here at 9:30. We got to start Surface Geeks. This is my double up week, so hang in there. We'll do some surfacegeeks.com at 9:30 Eastern. So, Jim, I want to start just real quick. I'm going to break my first rule and not do this at the end of the show because I'm afraid I'll never get to it. But I'd like to just talk a little meetup with you. And Chris, John Stutzman, you guys are RSVP'd, right?
Definitely, yeah. In fact, I have my room reservation already.
Okay. Did you get the room rate? Did you get the discounted rate, John?
Not yet. I still have to call them back and get that. When I made the reservation, they hadn't put through the discount code, but they said just call them back, and so I'm going to do that. I've already put in that I wanted a ground floor since I'm expecting to bring some equipment over just to make it easier. And the area's looking good. I was there this weekend and drove by and showed it to Mrs. Joe Miner, and she even suggested we go to Fry's, which, who am I to argue? So,
That's right.
Yeah, it's going to be. I think it's going to be the best meetup yet.
I agree, John. I agree. This one is getting crazy already, and unlike me, I'm doing well ahead of time, and it's just killing me that there's some things that you can't do because it's too early. So, but we do have the facility. We do have room rate at this Holiday Inn Express, which is kind of this nicer, foofier Holiday Inn Express. It's real cool. You will know when you get there that it is definitely different. But I encourage you, if you're thinking about doing this, RSVP and reserve your room at this hotel. They will sell out. This thing will fill up. It's September in Indianapolis is like soccer tournament month. So there's tons of things going on, and I don't know if you guys remember last year, tons of kids running around. This place was full. So, and it will fill up again. They did warn me that it will fill up again. So please RSVP and get your room. Now, if you don't, and if you're having trouble, just let me know, because there are hotels all around this area. The walking distance, still walking distance to Fry's, still walking distance to tons of restaurants and shops. So there's a lot of places for you to stay. Okay, now we're going to have a lot. We're going to be running 2 tracks. We're going to be running a Windows 8 Touch and Tablet, Windows Phone 8 section, and then we're also going to be running the Home Server Show, home storage and presentations on that. So if you are a company, a vendor, and you would like to get in on all this fun action, please let me know. podcast@homeservershow.com. I can send you all the details about sponsorship, breakfast and lunch, and if you would like to help us out with some giveaways, if you would like to even be a sponsored giveaway, and we can give away your product, your keys. Listen up, developers. We'd love to have your software. Advertise it on this podcast and give away a couple of keys to your software. So that would all be super appreciative. And I would encourage you to get in the forums, because there's a lot of folks talking in the forums about getting rides and needing rides. So I would encourage you to do that. homeservershow.com/forums. Now, I have a couple of surprises. I've been talking about this on Surface Geeks. I've got some big stuff coming to this meetup that it's going to blow your mind. Some big company names are going to have some folks at this meetup with stuff, and you're going to want to come. I implore you. I can't tell you right now, but there's going to be some cool stuff, and there's going to be some cool demonstrations of gear, and it's John, Chris, Jim, we're blowing it out of the water. It's going to be awesome. We have seats for 90 folks. That includes Gemini, the Gemini project.
That works. Yeah.
The twins.
And Dave, maybe a quarter of those already spoken for. So
that's right. We've had a better RSVP turnout on this one than ever before, and you know that people start getting down to the wire, and they'll RSVP at the end. So don't wait. Go ahead and get your RSVP, because I'm going to need your name on that list to get you in the door. If you're bringing someone else, they have to RSVP too. So please don't wait. You guys have any questions for me on the meetup?
No, I think we almost have Mike Howard talked into it. So
that would be awesome.
Driving up from Atlanta. So we were really close the other night on the last week when we kind of took over the home service.
Why don't Mr. Howard, I don't see him in chat.
No, he's on a boat in the middle of the Caribbean right now. So
okay.
He's not out there. But
remind me, guys, to get in touch with Mike, because I for sure know of someone in that southern area that is coming this way for the meetup.
Yeah, and he's trying to he's put the word out as well among his JPEG to RAW podcast about maybe some meetups up along the way. So he's trying to work this into something.
Okay, so maybe he might want to drive himself.
Yeah,
but I definitely know that there's a car coming this way from that area. So
yeah.
He will be our official photographer. We need that. We need that.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Jim, do you want to? How do you guys want to do this? Do you want to do a little bit of news and then dive right in, or?
No, let's dive right in. We'll cover the news at the end. You got to stay till the end to get the news. Let's get to the good stuff.
Completely okay with that. Okay, now John and Chris, you guys have been killing it on the blogs. Now, Chris, I know a lot of your stuff is going to be kind of later. You and I are going to get cozy on a podcast with some QNAP gear. Just give me a little tease. What do you have there at home, and what are you messing with?
So QNAP was nice enough, after you stopped at their CES booth, to send us a unit to evaluate. It's a TS269L. It's a 2-bay NAS. And already on the blog, I've got a couple posts. One is the unboxing and initial setup of that NAS. And then I did a second post that just went through setting up users and setting up shares, just to kind of show everybody what the interface looks like, the web application for working with that box. But it's a 2-bay NAS. But there's some things that this box can do that I think are really exciting that I'm not going to divulge right now. I guess if you go out and research a little bit on the QNAP devices, you'll know what I'm talking about. But they've got some features that they do with their boxes that, to be honest, some of the other guys are trying to catch up to. And I think even Jim just recently is looking at adding a feature into his Drobo with a Plex Media server. So the QNAP guys were kind of, I won't say they're leading the way, because we've been doing a lot of that with our Windows-based servers, but This little box has got a lot of stuff built into it for only a 2-bay NAS. And the neat thing about the QNAP products is they're running the same firmware on all their boxes, from the very simple home box all the way up to their enterprise solutions. And so once you learn the interface, you can work with any of them. So there'll be quite a few more posts showing up in the blog as I get into actually using some of the features in this NAS and relaying what my own experience with it really is.
I've looked a little bit, and you're shaking your head going, yeah, once I get into the features, because there's a lot of features.
Yeah, there are. One of the, they're running a Linux variation on the box, and they've incorporated some of the things that you commonly find in Linux, where it'll go and it'll fetch from a repository applications. So we used to have the application that was created for a while. I can't remember the name of it right now, but it was a centralized repository for add-ins for Windows Home Server version 1. Was it like Add-in Central or something?
Yeah, it was Add-in Central, wasn't it?
Yeah,
it was. Yep.
Yeah.
So they really do the same thing. You can go out and you can fetch applications and incorporate them onto this NAS, and they've got some really neat things. There's applications that people are always asking us about in the forums for adding into their servers, whether it's going out and well, I think I want to just bring them up in the posts and introduce people to them that way, because there is a wide variety of applications that can be added in, and one of them is an antivirus program.
Wow, Chris, I'm almost a little scared because I'm Mr. Synology, and now you're telling me about all these cool features. So we might have to do like some head-to-head stuff at the meetup.
Yeah, I agree. So, that's a little bit of a segue into to what John and I have also been messing with. One of the things that I really wanted to do, I knew I was going to get this QNAP device. You and I had talked a little bit before it came to me. And I really wanted a way to evaluate it so I could, a lot of times we just talk about running applications and doing video streaming and stuff, but there's got to be a good way in order to evaluate the performance of these different boxes. And so I did a little bit of research, and I found a tool. I didn't create it, out on the internet, that was created by Intel, and it specifically was created for evaluating network-attached storage devices. And talked to John Stutzman about it a little bit, and man, he jumped right in and started using it. So it's a really neat tool, and it allows us, with a common system, to do some head-to-head application evaluation. And then, like you said, at the meetup, we'll set these boxes side by side and bring up the interfaces to them, and people can really see what each one of them has to offer, and we'll have some fun with them.
Yeah, I'm already getting concerned about the amount of gear and the heat we're going to be generating and all that good stuff. I have to turn my phone off. I don't know if you guys can hear those tweets coming in.
Yes.
All right. Turn it down. People are trying to get on my tweet wall behind me. So expect a QNAP system at the meetup. Chris will no doubt give a demonstration of that. So that will be one of the things that'll be on the schedule, a demonstration of the QNAP. We've got a couple of demonstrations already kind of set up, and we'll be publishing that schedule for the meetup here soon. So, Chris, it sounds awesome. I'm kind of excited to get in and to read your articles. So, I'm looking forward to those.
I'll try and get them cranked out a little quicker here.
Don't rush. Don't worry about it. It is okay. So that did lead us kind of into why we're here tonight, and that is to kind of break down some microservers. We want to take a couple of posts about the HP microserver. Now, officially they call this a ProLiant. Isn't that correct, John?
Yeah, they've called it the HP ProLiant microserver, and then then they would use the CPU designation to kind of separate the type of motherboards that were in it, the N36, the N40L, or the N54L. But when the N54L came out, they also called it the G7. I assume that's Generation 7. And I don't know, it could be a segue into talking about the G8 rumors later that Chris kind of spearheaded a thread on the forums with. I'm not sure how you wanted to approach this. I did a lot of comparisons. In a way, I'm kind of embarrassed that I got so much material up there, and it was really Chris that gave me the inspiration to use the Intel NAS Performance Toolkit, and we copied you on the emails back and forth where we were running all kinds of studies. Chris has been doing a lot of testing on his N40L and his N54, in addition to the other stuff, and so I think that's been a lot of give and take with us, kind of sharing information that's kind of helped me get a lot of the stuff, the ideas together to put together some of these reports and make them, if they're interesting at all, it's because Chris, I think, contributed a lot to
don't underestimate the power of data and how much the guys out there really like to learn and read about these comparisons. So where do you want to start, John? Do you want to start at a comparison and speed, or your setup, or how you want to do it?
I think if you go to one of the near to the end reports, it's the performance comparison to the modified EX487. That's my old MediaSmart server that I had modified with a CPU. I upgraded the CPU to the E5200, which was really the CPU that they have in or had in the EX495, and I had upgraded the RAM also to 4 gigabytes. And I, excuse me.
I see. I see the top picture here is I've got a model rocket and an old post office box that has been remounted into a little wooden structure, which I have one of those myself, John.
Oh, okay. And also I have, you'll see on that, I have Robbie the robot.
I see that on top of the
mounted on top of the
487
server.
What's I can't remember the name of the rocket.
It's an Estes rocket, and if you look close, you'll see that the tail fins have been damaged, and so it's
because
it won't fly anymore.
But I haven't shot any in Indiana because we don't have that much room. But that's very cool. So if you're missing out on this, head over to the YouTube video, and hopefully I'll have swapped out the Google YouTube, and you'll be able to see the video here of John's. We're doing all kinds of extra video for this podcast. So performance comparison of a modified EX487 and the N40L. Now, John, just catch me up. The N40L microserver is about what era? Is this the era just passed?
That's I guess you could say it's the one we just passed, because the N54 really is out now. And the
54, okay.
Yeah, the N54.
Prior was the 36?
Was the 36, yes.
Okay. So give me a good rundown about what we're going to look at here. I know this. I'm going to scroll down and show you guys. This article is a monster. I mean,
well,
it is a
I
monster.
think if you go all the way to the end, to
test results
16 and 17, that really summarizes a lot of the comparisons that are in there. I mean, there's a lot of information about how the client workstation's set up, and all the details of all my targets that we could, if we had a 20-hour show, we could get into all that. But if you get to figure 16, and it shows you the NAS performance test or toolkit performances of the various devices and the 12 tests, and you see that, well, the EX487, even with the enhanced CPU, really gets pounded by the N40L and the N54L, whether you're using Windows Home Server 2011 or 2012 Essentials. And really, when you get up there, you don't see a whole lot of difference between the N40L and the N54L. There is a slight difference, I guess, and so that could be attributed, I think, just to the more powerful CPU in the N54. But and then there is a difference between the Windows Home Server 2011 and the Server 2012 Essentials. But I
see
think
that in 2011 and Essentials have sped up the processes.
right, and I think the difference with Essentials being in both the N40L and the N54L being a little bit better performance than Windows Home Server is because of the RAM. And I'm basing that too on a test that Chris did when he had, I think, what was it, 4 gig, and then you did a test with 8 gig of RAM, and you saw a huge difference, Chris.
Yeah, I started with the original 2 gig that came in the N54L, and then I upped it to 8 gig with Windows Home Server 2011. And yeah, there was quite a few of the benchmarks. There was a noticeable improvement that was achieved by just putting additional RAM and no other change to the system at all. So it's one of those things where you and I commented back and forth that the RAM is a pretty cheap upgrade, and it helped the performance quite a bit.
Yeah, probably more than anything else. I bet RAM would boost your performance. And then Chris had done some studies, and I don't want to put words into his mouth, but with different types of hard drives. And so, didn't you see a difference between using the Reds versus the Seagates when you did your test?
So the latest test I did was actually using that QNAP device. I had Reds in it, and I wanted to see if there really was going to be an impact with you. I had the 3 terabyte Seagate, so I swapped them in, and I reran the tests. And with that device, I saw basically no significant difference with using them. So I was actually a little bit surprised, and partly the reason I was surprised is you look at just the benchmarks that are done for those drives, and the Red drives are a little bit slower drive than what the Seagates are. But with these performance tests, the thing that really starts to come out is when you start doing a lot of small file movement, file copy, things like that. So some of the benchmarks are directory copies from or to the NAS, or file copies from and to the NAS. Those are much harder for these storage devices to handle, and the transfers are significantly slower than when you try and do a transfer of like a 4 gigabyte video file, for example. When you transfer a big file like that, these systems really perform because you can really get everything streaming, and it doesn't have to do a lot of writing and reading and manipulation. So these tests where you're moving a lot of small files, and you can even see it in the benchmarks, it really slows down the read-write capabilities of the system. And the Reds versus the Seagates, it didn't really show much difference, at least on the QNAP device.
Another thing that I saw as far as performance difference between the N40L and the N54 was I wanted to check the snappiness difference between the two CPUs. And I used just a stopwatch, and I test how fast the dashboard would load. And the dashboard I thought was a good indicator because it took a while to load in the N40. And in both with Windows Home Server and 2012 Essentials, I saw about a 40% increase in performance going from the N40L to the N54L. And I mean, you didn't see that difference of performance in the file transfers and such, but that snappiness does affect how things load and how fast things operate. Just the feel when you're at either you've remoted into the server, or you're working at the dashboard, or you have the monitor and you're sitting there working at it next to the machine. I timed some other things, but like always sync, it was only 10 seconds to begin with, so it's going from the N40L to the N54. It was only a 1 second improvement, but then I'm timing it and I'm doing it by eyeball, so that 10% improvement, that could be there or it could not be there. It could have been just a wash. Loading the server manager, this is about the same thing. The computer management, though, I did see a pretty good improvement. It was noticeable, but even then, it was only 2.5 seconds improvement. So it was, but it does give an idea of the snappiness that you feel when you're working on the N54L compared to the N40. But as far as performance, streaming video, moving files up and down, it's they're very close, the N40L to the N54L, whether you're running Windows Home Server or Essentials.
John, in your tests, did you change between the running Windows Home Server 2011 and Server 2012? Any significant changes in those two configurations, or was it straight across one OS on one and the other, on the exact same configurations in that chart, number 16?
Pretty much, they were essentially the same configurations. I did list, if you go to the paper, the performance comparison of Windows Server Essentials, for instance, and let's see, let's go down in here, specifications of the target. Basically, the hard drives were all the same in both machines. They were all Seagates. Each of them had 5 Seagates. They all had about 6 terabytes of data, live data. Well, the Windows Home Server really was live data, and Essentials was just a copy of that data so that I could simulate having that data on there, because you got to have how much data you have the hard drives filled up with also affects the performance, because if you have an empty hard drive, you're going to get a lot better performance than if the drive is, say, 70% full or something like that. So each machine had 15 terabytes of data drives, and they were probably 6 terabytes, 40% full. They had the standard programs loaded. They both had Microsoft Forefront loaded and running in both Essentials and Windows Home Server on both the N40L and the N54L. Windows Home Server had drive pool and scanner going, and they both had Dropbox and SkyDrive. They had the IC-Dock dual swap. They had backup hard drives attached. And they both had USB 3 cards, and they both had Rocket 640L cards to speed up the SSDs. I guess really the only difference in hardware between the two, Windows Home Server had a 256 gigabyte Crucial hard drive or SSD, and Essentials had 128 a Crucial. Yeah, but that performance difference is, I think, pretty negligible between the two. So it's, and then the I think the specifications of my client workstations in that same report. I just listed the specs of the client workstation once, and it was in that first report, and then just basically it was the same all the way through. Originally, I started out with it on my desktop, And Chris and I had a long conversation about this. It really depended where you had that client workstation, and it depended on the network traffic you had going in and out of that machine. That really impacted performance. And like, so if it was on my desktop, if I had other VMs running, that impacted the performance because they're all fighting for the same NIC. Or if I'm just doing things, other things on the desktop, I guess somehow the traffic would still impact that because they would be going through the same switch in my home office, and then going downstairs, going through the D-Link central switch, and then before they go to the server. Chris and I talked about it, and Chris had suggested that if I could set it up so that I'm only going through one switch, that would be better. So I moved it to my VM server downstairs. I moved it to Colossus. And when I moved it down there, I put it on, I had a VM drive that I was using, a Crucial 256 for one of my VM drives, and I put it on that, but I was having the same problems if I had other VMs running. So I went and I shut down all my VMs on that server except for the one that was the client workstation, and ran that. And I had performance information in the paper about the VM, where I actually did performance test on the VM that was running. It was a Hyper-V client. It was a Windows 7 Professional. We were running the NAS performance test version 1.7.1, and I had 2 gig of RAM in it, which could or may not impact the performance, but as long as it's consistent across all the machines and all my testing, it'll be a consistent impact. So that's why also I put in that statement that the NAS tests that I run aren't going to be directly comparable to, say, what Chris might post later on if his client workstation is set up differently. And in addition to, our networks might be a little bit different, so that can impact things.
Different switches, yeah, maybe a little better crimp on a cable or a little better crimp on an end, or
Yeah, when I found this tool, I was searching around a little bit for NAS benchmarks and stuff, and a lot of the sites who evaluate storage devices have used this tool at one time or another, and they all have to preface it with exactly what their client setup is and the network they use, and then they try to be as consistent as possible. So the benchmarks are only really valuable when comparing one system against another within the same test system, to really demonstrate the advantages of one device over another. So like John said, my benchmark tests versus his can't be compared directly with the numbers, but we have the advantage of multiple systems in the case of both John and I, so we can run these benchmark tests using the 2 microservers we have, or these other NAS devices that I have, and we can then publish, what we're seeing for performance differences.
Right. Yeah, definitely all relative, and all relative back to that single workstation that you're using to make the comparisons. And some of these bigger shops, they have a network set aside, a switch and the workstation right there on the table, and then the unit under test right there on the table. So it's all enclosed, and your results may vary, and that's what they always say. So I would take that into consideration, not only when you read Home Server Show articles from Chris and John, but also when you guys are out reading on the greater World Wide Web when they do speeds and testing. Things are going to be different. You're not going to get what they get. Perhaps you even get better. You never know.
Yeah, the other thing I'll mention is if you read a little bit about people that have tried to use this NAS evaluation tool, one of the complaints is that it's not set up for a multi-user network. It's really looking at one user, one client accessing this device, and there are some traces in there that are trying to simulate 2 video streams or 4 video streams, or a video stream along with a recording stream to try to show additional network traffic. But in order to get repeatable results, you can't have the randomness that comes from having multiple clients trying to access the device, because you just can't repeat it time after time. So again, like you said, it's really relative evaluation just to give you an idea of the differences in the system.
Right. And as the chat room just said, your mileage may vary. So, I mean, I'm hearing a little bit about what you're saying, guys, and some of the things that you're saying is, definitely RAM makes a difference. RAM and processor. But I know this already, right? We know that. RAM and processor. Have you found anything else that just like makes a difference, or some funny things that you found in these tests?
Well, I think when you go back to the original chart that I was talking about, figure 16, you see that the EX series, the microservers just blow that out of the water.
Okay, so that's one definitive you're giving me here is
it's
that old architecture built on
there's
version 1.
Something in the architecture that makes a huge difference.
Okay.
And you look at all the video playback traces, and it's like a 3-to-1 improvement.
Okay.
So it's even if you're just going to the N40L from the EX series.
John, I think you're underplaying the statement here that I do think you see a significant, and that's that word significant, but I see a pretty good improvement between 2011 and 2012 as far as performance goes. I mean, benchmarked, whether you're on an N40 or an N54L, there is enough improvement from my standpoint as I look at these numbers that I go, yeah, I think if I'm making the decision, and price doesn't matter to me at that point, right? Because it's a big difference in price between the two. But if price is irrelevant between the two, I want to run 2012 Essentials right now if I'm looking for the best possible throughput on, let's say, 9 out of 10 categories as you go through this. I mean, at 9 out of 10, they're better on 2012 than they are in 2011. That's what your numbers tell me.
If you go back and you realize that 2012 is running with 16 gigabytes of RAM and Windows Home Server is stuck at 8, and
and that's
I
still
did try a test where I had them both stuck on 8 gig. I mean, 8 gig is all Windows Home Server can access. I mean, you could, if you had the machine, you could put 2012 Essentials on a something with 32 gig, and I suspect you would see even more improvement.
There's got to be some spot where that stops, where you don't get a continual return just by throwing more RAM at it. But I know you're not testing for that. But just as I would like to,
if I had the hardware, I would.
I've got a box here that's got 32 gig of RAM in it, so maybe you should have me test it out.
The drives are going to start to become a limit.
Yeah,
we're going to start saturating the capability of the drives.
Well, and right, look at some of our. I'm sorry.
No, if you look at this, I mean, it's telling. It's telling. It's the article, and this everything will be in the show notes, guys. If you're listening to this, please come back to look at this podcast post. The article is performance comparison of a modified EX487 versus the N40L and the N54L. John's got a lot of charts, but I think the one that we're kind of zeroing in on is image number 16, kind of at the bottom of this article, and you're listing Windows Home Server version 1 versus Windows Home Server 2011 versus Essentials 2012. And what you're also listing out on this image is the hardware. So you ran version 1 on the EX487, and then you compared those numbers to 2011 on both the N40L and the N54L. And then you compared those numbers again to the N40L and the N54L running on Server 2012 Essentials. So now the EX487, you just ran version 1. So all you version 1 guys out there, you're going to be able to see kind of ballpark what your hardware can do versus what these guys are talking about on their microservers, because I know you've seen them talking about it in the forums, you've heard it in the podcast. You're going to see the numbers on the N40L and the N54L, and that'll kind of give you an idea in your head the next time that you see, the N40L discounted, which I've seen not too long ago they were selling an N40L, but it seems like we've kind of moved on, have we not?
The N54L was just on sale for $238 from Newegg.
Yeah.
Yeah. So are we just going to call it the N40L is a no buy, or?
Well, I think there's going to be N40Ls out there on the used market, and if you want something, I mean the performance numbers as far as video playback, when you're looking at it, when you figure that 125 megabytes per second is is the theoretical cap on a gigabit network, and we're seeing numbers in the hundreds for some of these video performances. It's you're getting pretty darn close to the theoretical cap on a gigabit network.
It seems like it's not doing too bad, the N40L compared to the N54L, but the N54L,
But from Dave, what you're
outclasses
saying
it in every column here.
From a price point standpoint, why would you buy right now?
Yeah, I'm saying, the N40L used would have to be a Benjamin, $100.
Yeah, or less. Yeah, for that,
If
in
you
that
get
price range.
under $250 for a new, which that doesn't happen all the time, but I think I might just call it N40L, unless you're going to be clustering, getting 4 of these things together, running something crazy. But
What do you want to segue right to what's coming down the pipe?
okay, segue to the pipe.
So
there's a chart for that.
The N54L hasn't been.
There is, John.
The N54L hasn't been in the marketplace for very long, and we're already seeing the sneak peek at the next generation microserver.
Yeah, I mean they're pumping these out.
You wonder if there's somebody at HP wondering how they're selling these things. Like you kind of wonder they're successful and they're like, holy crap, we need to keep selling them, but nobody knows who's buying them. They have no idea we're out here talking about these things the way we talk about them. I know it's just not us. But
I guarantee you we're about to inform them that we're out here talking about them.
Yeah.
They are on my list for the meetup, and we'll see if I can penetrate the bureaucracy of the big machine of HP. So
We'll just give Meg Whitman a call.
okay, they've got her on speed dial.
Yeah. She might want to stay at the Hilton Garden next door. But,
She might want to come give a talk.
Yeah.
Okay.
so,
All right,
which is the chart we need to look at for
you
this?
guys, obviously we're going to go to your latest article about the performance comparison of the rumored, and this is rumored, ProLiant G8 versus the G630T and the G530T. So sort these numbers out for me, somebody.
Well, if you go to it's table 1, it's really the only image in the latest paper that came out, and I just cranked that out. I'd had the table from an earlier paper I'd written on performance comparison of the microservers versus some other machines, like the Media Smarts. And so it was pretty easy just to throw in 2 more CPUs, look up some of their information about their TDPs.
Okay, so you kind of did a little out of the box thinking here. No
So
pun intended.
I wanted to see how they compared. What kind of performance increase would I get with my brand new N54L that I just moved my Windows Home Server 2011 to, compared to the G630T when that supposedly comes out the end of next month. And going from an N54L to that, you're looking at 64% CPU and performance. But what's most intriguing, and maybe Chris will want to talk more about this, is that I mean, they're looking at having an 1155 socket, and with the potential of being able to put like a Core i3. In fact, I've been reading on another website that I posted in the thread, where there is somebody out there with a beta unit, and they've been talking about it, and they have a Core i3 in it, and for the G8, and it's that opens up a lot of possibilities, because that reminds me back with the Media Smart. You remember how I told you I had the 487 and I upgraded the CPU and the RAM and everything? Well, if they have a socket in there again, that opens up those possibilities again to start enhancing the performance, I guess.
Yeah, the only issue right now is that everything is just speculation based upon what people we're hearing, at least from this beta unit. And the beta unit doesn't have all of the bells and whistles that are purported to be on the final version. It's got ILO built right into the motherboard on the beta unit, and we're hearing through the rumor mill that may be a separate card. There's just different things on that beta unit that aren't lining up directly with the production unit, so there's still just a ton of speculation. And supposedly all this stuff is going to be, the production version's coming out the end of June, and which you'd think we'd see more on a production unit at this point if that was the case. So only time will tell, but there's definitely something happening, because the Gen 8 microserver would line up with the rest of the G8 ProLiant servers that HP already has introduced into the marketplace.
I love this stock image that you've got here on this article, and once again, it's another link that you guys are going to have to get out there and look at. I encourage everyone to do that, because we're talking about going from, I mean, there's several years of processor comparison here that you've done, and you've thrown out some numbers, and you're kind of we've got a Celeron G530T inside this microserver down here, and it's interesting numbers. You can see kind of where the progression of N36L, N40L, and the N54L, and kind of where it may progress in the future. And I don't see why an i3 isn't in the future for this box.
Well, it's, and it's still all speculation, because
True.
And for all we know, HP could be sending out betas with just some weird stuff that they don't intend actually to come out with. But why they would do that, I don't know. But then again, there's been a lot of things they've done. I wondered why they did it, but it's very interesting when you hear some of the rumors and trying to piece together and trying to figure, well, who can I depend on, and who knows what they're talking about. If somebody's talking about a beta unit that they have, obviously to have access to the beta unit, they had to have signed some sort of non-disclosure. So, how are they talking about this, or are they just kind of making this stuff up? So you need a degree of skepticism with it, but I thought it was exciting enough when I heard about the two purported CPUs to throw together a table and just get a feel for what kind of performance improvement. And the picture, if you look at the picture, it's not in the document, but if you go to the podcast site where you have all the papers listed and everything, and it's like the little thumbnail. That thumbnail I grabbed from a guy who grabbed it from a guy who I'm now following on Twitter, and he had posted to all his friends, all millions of them, I guess, a picture of all the G8 generation servers coming out, and he had the microserver. The G8 was sitting on top of a moonshot, and they had some other machines next to it, and they're all going with this new kind of uniform aluminum aluminum looking type front.
Yeah, I'm
door.
showing that in the live stream right now, and it's a pretty nice looking box.
Yeah, it's supposed to be well, and I put in the thread that Chris had started an article that I had seen on Forbes that was an interview with Meg Whitman, and it talked about how she was pushing adding style to their machines, that she wanted to have something in there that looked good, that you just didn't want to shove into a closet. And she also it talked about how she had told people she wanted them to come out with new stuff while their existing stuff is still on the upward curve. So she wanted to be planting acorns, she said, while, so that those trees will start growing before things that are on the upward curve now, before the curve starts turning down. And I think we saw before with the N50 or the N36 and the N40 that they just kind of milked it for all it was worth before they came out with the next one. And,
Right.
And I was expecting when the N54 came out, I thought, well, it's going to be another year or two before we see the next iteration from this. And so I was shocked when I heard news of the G8 coming out.
Yeah, it seems that you never know what hand's running the company there, because it seems that they somewhat did that with the old version 1 boxes, the 470, the 475. Then they came out, 485, 487. Chris, you have a 587.
485.
485, 487. Getting confused. Then they came out with a 490, the 495. Then they came out with a 510 for small business. They were iterating rather quickly, what I thought. So,
we've also come full circle in style. Certainly, as we look at the old Media Smart boxes, they were supposed to be elegant, and you could set them out on the counter, and they would look nice. And we've moved to these more plain, these microservers are very plain, very keep them in a back closet. Doesn't matter what they look like. I mean, they look okay, but they're kind of plain. And now we've come back around. And John, I think you just said this. Like Meg said something like, we want an elegant looking, again, something that you could put out and would look nice in public. So HP's come full circle on this, and not necessarily bought into the home server ecosystem while doing it, but knowing they got to be knowing their marketing to the home server crowd with this, and maybe why they're going back to this sleeker, whether you like it or not. There's kind of an argument going on in chat right now whether style equals gaudy or style equals style, but something that looks nice out on the counter somewhere. So full circle from HP on this.
yeah, sorry, I'm just sitting there reading chat. And you know what else I'm also doing? I have the performance comparison article that you have of 2011 on the N40L versus the N54L. And I'm just looking at your picture, and I'm going to show that to the stream. You've got the guts all splayed out on these guys. And I give that up. Hang on. There it is for the chat room. Yeah.
The one at the top?
Yeah, you've got them. You've got all their guts laying out there, and
I think I might have tweeted something like that too once.
pretty neat. Pretty neat there. Because you're not working with a whole lot there. You've got that tray and you've got the board, and it reminds me so much of the Media Smart server.
Yeah.
But the Media Smart server was just not that nimble to be pulled apart. I don't know if one of my most popular videos on YouTube is replacing the RAM chip inside this thing, and it's a chore.
That was a great video, by the way, too.
That was my first YouTube ever.
The only Media Smart server that we've seen the guts inside of consistently would have been Diehard's
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure the screw heads are stripped out on
He just never put them back in.
Johnny Zadler's. That's right.
Yeah.
Well, and it's funny too because I remember when I got the first one and the first time I took it apart, and I had gone to their website and I had played their maintenance videos, and they had checklists that you could print out. So I had all the checklists printed out, and I would go through, and as I did something, I would check it off on the checklist. I even had another checklist in reverse order to check it off when I put it back together. And after you did that a couple of times, now it's just I go and I get I loosen up the screws, pop it out, and I'm just zipping right along. And I even remember to loosen the screws on the cards in the back. One time I forgot that, and I couldn't understand why it was hard pulling that tray out.
Right.
But it's a fun little box, and there's so many things you can do with it. And I'm still just amazed at people taking these things and making them, just making them a Windows 7 or Windows 8 machine, or making a home theater PC with it. Putting in a high quality video card. It's just amazing what people can do with these things.
It is crazy. I'm out there in the forums right now. We have 60,000 posts, 3,300 members. Andy ZZ is our latest member. He joined today at 4:30 p.m. We've had our most online at one time is 198. There are 68 people browsing right now, including a couple of regulars out there, and Bing and Google, of course. But I find it amazing how the resurgence of home storage has almost kind of peaked with this microserver device. And I know that we have good Google rankings, and you guys are really a part of this movement with the HP microserver, and putting anything you want on it. I mean, you guys are fielding questions from Linux heads, and stuff about Plex and all kinds of crazy stuff, because they're out there asking. I've seen you guys field questions on the BIOS mods. That's a big one. I think BIOS is a good keyword for microserver as well. So I kind of, my hat has to be off to you guys. I'll show the website real quick.
150,000 views, Dave. 158,000 views on that one post for the BIOS mod. I tell Christian that all the time. He has no idea what kind of can of worms he opened, or can of whoop ass, one of the two that he opened.
Yeah, both, and it's both great. Thank you, Christian, for getting out there and doing that. BIOS-mods.com for you guys curious about what we're talking about.
That's the thing is we didn't do the BIOS mod. We just implemented it and taught others how to do it.
Yeah, but these other sites, they depend on sites like ours to aggregate content and point. Because they've got one BIOS mod in one article, right? And we have dozens and dozens and dozens of articles. So our Google ranking on that is going to be higher, and these guys depend on that. So we're doing a service to those folks that have done the coding, and I hope that they're appreciative of that. Jim, does that surpass the antivirus? I don't even know how you find that on the forums.
Oh, which one? Yeah, that's a good question. I don't know. That was the number one for such a long. Was it around Avast? Was that?
I don't even remember. I'm signing in right now.
Yeah.
Because there was a couple. There's a couple of antivirus topics that had many views.
Yeah,
I wish I could break those out. Most views, and break them out.
List them by most views.
Yeah, the antivirus software for Server 2012 Essentials had 18,600 views. So
okay.
Well, it's a pretty broad topic. We've talked about it a lot, and I think actually as I do a query on antivirus here, I see that there's a lot more topics around it that have three Oh, here it is.
Yeah.
Windows Home Server 2011 and antivirus, 82,412. So yes,
Yep.
Dave, it has surpassed it.
Wow.
Yeah, but that gives you an idea of the magnitude, of the importance of that post and what it's done and what people are doing. And I think that, Dave, as I think back to the MediaSmart stuff that we did, the Microserver is the new. I mean, it's the Windows Home Server on this platform, and we're all talking about it and we're all doing it, and it is the new home server from that standpoint. I mean, just in sheer numbers, it has taken over the place of the home server. The home server concept. And now we're just talking about, do you put 2011 on it or do you put 2012 Essentials on it? We actually have more choice today than we had 4 years ago when HP was the only one making these things. We've got more choice in equipment that we can buy. We've got more choice in configurations that we can put together. We have more choice in hard drives. We weren't talking SSDs 4 years ago in these. Even 3 years ago, we were debating. 3 and 2 years ago we were debating. So there's never been a better time, I think, for the home server concept. It's not, we pronounced it, and I say I'll say the community, maybe some of you in the community pronounced it DOA 6 months ago. Oh, home server's dead, right? Man, it's anything but dead at this point. I mean, it's alive and kicking, and maybe it's a phoenix, right? Maybe it has emerged from the ashes to be very much alive.
Maybe this is why HP is not contacting me, because they're pissed that we're modifying their BIOS. I found it. 158,749 views.
And 20 pages of content.
20. Oh. Started by Diehard.
Yeah.
January 2012. So
who would have thought it?
A little over a year. 158,000 views. I'm just. That's awesome.
Yeah,
that's
it's good. It's good.
Crazy.
So whoever says the home server's dead, suck it.
Yeah, there's still posts out there that you see all the time where somebody has bought an N54L. It's their first microserver, and they've bought Windows Home Server 2011. And they want information. What's the best way to set this thing up?
Mm-hmm. Tons of those posts. I bet there's 3 of them a day sometimes, John. And I want to say, if you're listening to the show and you're going to go to the forums, I'll just remind you, do a quick search before you just post. When you go out there, there's tons of that already out there, and you comb through some of that material that we have out there before you. I mean, I encourage you. I don't want to discourage you from posting, but a lot of folks, especially if you just bought an N54L and you're putting Windows Home Server 2011 on it, we got a ton of material already out there for that. It's already well documented. And John, I was going to suggest, I bet you have a text document somewhere on your PC there that has the standard. Here's all the things you can do with a microserver that you just copy and paste into some of these notes, because I'm seeing some consistency. And when folks are asking questions, it's like, okay, read this, then read this, then read this. And we almost need a post that says, just bought a microserver, read this first, and because you have put together a really nice, very concise document that I see you put out when folks start posting. So nice work there.
We do have a couple of pages.
Yeah,
one of them started out
John,
as useful microserver links, and then the other one I think is called microserver hardware links. That they started out small and they've grown big, and we try to steer people towards those. And I do see that they're getting a lot of views, but I know there's so much information there. It's unless somebody's really diligent. And maybe a little OCD, it's probably difficult to go through all that information. And I'm sure it's part of the factor too. When you get a device and you get it home, you want to plug the thing in and start using it, and then read the instructions later.
I think there's a lot of people that it's easier to ask the question than go search for the answer.
Yeah,
it is. It's just that's just how forums are, guys.
We're helpful. We accommodate. We don't mind.
Yeah. Just know that if in the middle of the night there's plenty of information out there already, take a peek at it. If you can't get anybody to answer you right away.
The other thing I really enjoy is when I see a new topic come up and it says, "Thanks to the Newegg deal I saw on the forums, I just bought my first microserver, and here's what I want to do with it."
Right.
I really enjoy seeing those.
Oh, I do too.
I think Newegg should be sending some people to the meetup.
Yeah, I tried Newegg once on our first meetup, and they were like, "Yeah, we don't do that." I'm sure if we were sending a couple hundred a day, Newegg would do that because money does talk. But they're so darn big. We're not even a blip on their radar of pushing sales. But I do appreciate every purchase out there. That's why I said that, is because that definitely helps pay the bills and all that kind of good stuff. And I'm coming up on my domain renewal. It's June, and I have 31 domains now, and so it's an expensive June for me. I'm going to try to pare down some of my domains. Let me take a break here from the action and just let me find my show notes real quick and mention something. One of the things I wanted to mention from you. So if we're just going to do an ad, let's do an ad. Amazon.com / homeservershow.com / Amazon. If you're not an Amazon Prime member, why don't you go try to sign up? And that'll give Home Server Show a little kickback. We'll be able to pull off a great meetup for you and keep the forums alive. Prime, you can stream movies. You get free 2-day shipping and all kinds of good stuff. You get free 30 days on the Amazon Prime. So please go try it. Homeservershow.com / Amazon. Excuse me. That'll take you straight there. I'm trying to find my link. Where is it? Jim, we buried it. What I wanted to say is, do you remember the streaming episode that we did with Richard Gunther of the digitalmediazone.com? These guys mentioned that they're going to start a new podcast. And the new podcast that they're going to start is about home automation. So Richard just pinged me yesterday and said he's about to start that show. And I'm going to put a link in the show notes. I'm going to put it at the top so you guys can find it. And I would like you to go check out the site. The podcast name is going to be called Home On. So if you kind of think about it, you kind of get it, home automation. So real great to see that. And I can't wait to add this to my huge mongus list of podcasts on my brand new Nokia Lumia 928 right here. And so thanks for Richard for coming on. We're still fielding questions about the streaming megasode, and 2 days ago, guys, I bought my first Roku so I can stream my Amazon Prime. I after that episode, you guys knew I was confused, and I was like, what do I get? Do I use the Xbox 360? And I thought, well, let me try the Roku, because it was when I went to Best Buy, I thought it was going to be $49, but it was $79. And when I got it home, it's the cheaper one, and it's only wireless.
It's the 2? Roku 2?
2, yes. Roku 2 only has HDMI and wireless. So I'm thinking, I kind of wish I would have got the Ethernet one for $20 more, and then I would have had the handy-dandy Angry Birds app.
Yeah, that's the Roku 3.
That is Roku 3. You are correct.
It's got a Wii-like controller. Only because I've been looking at it as well. Since that show, I listened to you guys. I wasn't on the show, but I got a chance to jump in midway and listen to you guys, and it really made me take a second look at what I'm doing from a media perspective. We've got an HTPC out front. It's an old HP box that really gives me more problems than it's worth. And with Josh coming back from college, we have an Xbox out there as well. He brought his Xbox home. And but Sarah doesn't like to switch between the two, and now I have a third option. So maybe we'll talk about that. Maybe we'll save that till next week. But
yeah, and let me get off the forehead chat. And I have a 360 back here by my TV, fairly out in the open, not tucked away at all. And when I turn that on to run my 360 back here, it screams at me. I mean, literally screaming at me. Now, this is the original 360, non HDMI, so it's component. So this is one of the first 360s ever built. It's never red ringed on me. But it gets hot and it screams. And I thought, you know what? I cannot put that in the living room. If I had one of the newer ones with HDMI, maybe. Because if I put this in the living room, I have to put it way out in the open. And that's not going to fly with Mrs. Surface Geeks and Mrs. Home Server Show. So, Roku 2, it is for me. I may box this thing back up and take it and get the Roku 3. I'm not sure. Now, the other reason that I did this is because I'm not entirely convinced that the Xbox One is going to come out before the NFL season starts. I'm thinking it's going to be a little pushed off. Now, if they would have came out and said, fellas, you're going to be able to get this in July, I would have not bought anything and I would have waited. But I'm not entirely convinced that's going to come out. So we can talk about streaming again sometime. It's a good episode.
Yeah, I may pick up a Roku too. Sarah has been using Prime, our Prime account, to watch more videos. In fact, she bought season 2 of Once Upon a Time off of Prime and has been watching a lot more. And so I'll be interested to follow you on it a little bit. I don't know if we'll go right away with it, but my test of Plex will steer me in that direction or not as we move forward with Plex.
Okay. Well, I see we have about 10 more minutes, Chris and John. Is there anything else that you want me to know about your adventures here?
I think the only thing I would say is we're just getting started with it.
Oh, goodness. You guys are the stat screen capture kings. You'll know what I'm talking about, guys. Head out to the homeservershow.com. The first entire page of the blog is nothing but Chris and John jamming out posts and putting their signature style on the microserver and their testing, and of course the QNAP TS269L, which we're going to see more of from Chris in the future. John, what do you think?
I think it's going to be very interesting when the G8 comes out, and I think there's still a lot of life left in the N40s and the N54s. So I think I never thought, a year ago that we would be seeing this kind of activity, and I think it's growing exponentially. So I don't know what it's going to be like a year from now, but I think it'll be interesting.
You're right. I thought after all of this, I would just gradually kind of slow down Home Server Show, and just one day, just shut the door, turn the light out. And it's hard to. I mean, I could easily turn it off, but there's so many things going on. The NAS area has just exploded with Synology taking off, and IOSafe and Synology getting together, and now we've picked up QNAP, and there's stuff that we haven't even looked at. The Drobos are freaking out. We got more news on Drobo later, but cloud storage. It's just there's a lot to talk about, a lot to cover, and we got a lot of good action in the forum. So I don't think that we can go anywhere, guys. We still have things to do.
Yeah, we're going to see a lot of activity, I think, once the market or the pipelines kind of dry up on the Windows Home Server 2011s, where you're able to buy new copies. You're going to be seeing a lot of activity, I think, with the 2012 Essentials, and with the increased size of hard drives, a box that you can these little boxes that you can put 4 or 5 3.5-inch drives in, is you can get a lot of data on those things, and it's going to be pretty interesting. I had sent you a post too. I didn't know if you'd wanted to talk about it. I had upgraded my Hyper-V server too when I was at Fry's, and with a couple of Samsung 840 Pros, I put them in a RAID 1 for my VM drive, and had some fantastic performance reads over 900 and writes over 900, sequential reads and writes over 900. So I'm getting my Hyper-V server ready for the next round of testing that I'm going to be doing, I guess you could say.
John, I think I'm going to follow you on that. I've been building out this. I have a Windows Server 2012 standard box that we enabled the Hyper-V role on it, and I've been working with that. I'm noticing now my bottleneck is the I/O, and it does seem a little sluggish. So I'm going to follow you. I don't know if I'll get 2 of them. I don't know if I'll put them in a RAID 1, but I definitely get 1. What size drives are those? Are those the 128 or the 256?
They're the 256.
Okay.
One thing that was nice about Fry's, and probably everybody else but me knew about this, was that they'll match any other prices on the internet. So I got there and we found some pretty good prices. Well, it was $229, and they would match that. And so that's another thing too at the meetup. Before you go to the meetup, it might be a good idea to do some trolling on the internet for prices on things that you want. And if you find a good price, and you can get it, at Fry's, they'll match an internet price. I had been using the Crucial M4s for VM drives. I just used them. I had 2 of them, and I was using them the single drives. And then I tried doing just the software RAID 0, and I really liked that. But then I saw the Samsungs, and I was, when Mrs. Joe Miner said, "Why don't we go over to Fry's since you haven't been to Fry's for a while?" It was like, yeah.
Did you check her temperature, John?
Well, my birthday was coming up, so.
Okay.
I got you.
So she just kind of smiled and.
Nicely done.
Yeah.
Birthday gifts are great.
Yeah, especially when you can pick them out.
Exactly. That is the best birthday gift ever. Well, I don't want to ruin this conversation, but I feel that we'll have more of the microserver show coming up. And, guys, if you don't like microservers, I feel for you. They're hot right now. They're very hot. If you don't like them, hit me up at podcast@homeservershow.com and let me know what you want, and I will try to get it up on the podcast. But we do have some news. And Chris Kinney, John Stutzman, thank you, sir. Thank you, sir, for doing what you do for the Home Server Show and for the forums. I appreciate everything you do, and I can't wait to see you guys at the meetup.
Looking forward to it.
Yep, me too.
All right. Hang in there, Jim. I know you got one big piece of news. Drop that on me, and let's get out of here.
Yeah, just real quick. So, Tim, go ahead and put the $ in chat. We're going to talk a little Drobo. So, it was announced yesterday. Actually, the news broke on Monday that Drobo will be merging with Connected Data. And Connected Data is a company about the same size as Drobo, at least in dollars. But both companies, or Connected Data is one that makes what's called the Transporter 2. It's a Dropbox-like device, private cloud, so to speak. It allows you to
Dropbox,
allows you to add cloud storage and keep that storage at home. It makes for a nice merger between the 2 organizations. The interesting part on this news is the founder of Drobo left Drobo a couple years back and founded this company,
right,
and has since come back and orchestrated a merger.
I thought that was what glaringly jumped out at me. I was like, wait a minute, Drobo guys founded this file transporter, and you'll be happy to know, guys in the chat room, the file transporter is expensive too. I mean, the thing starts at $299 just for
no drives.
With no drives. So roll the $sign.
Roll the dollar signs.
The other thing is I've got them on my list to contact for the meetup. That's so crazy.
Yeah, that's
Drobo's on my list. File Transporter was on my list, and now I don't know what to do.
Yeah, well, it'll be interesting to see what goes down at Drobo with this merger. Mergers are never exactly clean in the process, and so there'll probably be some fallout associated with it.
Always is.
More news will come out on that as we go. But Drobo's near and dear to my heart. For my birthday, my family bought me a Drobo 5N.
Which was just, a week ago, huh, Jim?
Yeah, it was just this Sunday. So I just got it in-house, and, got it set up. And what nerd family buys their dad a Drobo for his birthday, right? They all knew I wanted something like that, and they pitched together and got that. And the 5N has right behind it. I ordered the a 64 gig M-SATA card for it, so it'll have that SSD caching. That's supposed to significantly speed up the Drobo from a data transfer standpoint. So,
oh boy, roll the dice. It's just chat room. Just get them rolling. Come on.
Hey, it's only $82 on Amazon for that M-SATA, but the M-SATA prices have really come down.
Wow.
I mean, that card was double that just probably 8 or 9 months ago.
Well, I can't complain, Jim. I got my first John Deere over the weekend.
Oh yeah, see, now that's an expensive habit right there. So the new Drobo 5N has both now, and they just released Plex support. So Plex is now a Drobo app that sits on top of the Drobo, and you can run Plex off of that. And that's why I was mentioning Plex. I'm going to start monkeying with Plex a little bit. And then another copy.com. I think we've talked about that. Maybe not here, maybe on my show. Copy.com has come rushing on the scene, and there's some integration between Drobo and Copy.com. So some interesting things transpiring at Drobo, and I'm going to, of course, stay on. I'm the Drobo correspondent, so I will stay on top of that, and I'll have the FS with me when we come out to the meetup. So I'll have that for folks that want to.
Maybe we can hit up Drobo if things kind of settle down and we can get some of their new devices just to show. I would like to do just a demo bar of Drobo and to show that, I mean, we're killing it here. We got the microserver, we got Synology specialists, which I kind of gave myself that moniker. Chris Kinney is going to be our QNAP guy. John Stutzman is our microserver specialist, and Jim, you're Mr. Dollar Sign. So, and we give Drobo a hard time.
Look at my picture. Look at my picture in the forums. It says it all.
Exactly. We're just kidding. We love the Drobo. I did a FS review for Byte.com a year and a half ago, 2 years ago. So we love the Drobo. But
it'd be interesting to see where they go. So I'm going to stick with it for a while and see how that merger goes, and interested to see what kind of data transfer speeds I get once this. And I need to do some tests with it and without it, and the FS. So John, I might be calling you for that for that software. You've intimidated me with your posts.
Chris has got it too.
Okay. You both have been.
I want to say, Jim likes Drobo so much he got his kid a job there too. So
yeah,
true.
Yeah, absolutely.
True.
Working tech support.
Guys, start saving your money for switches and projectors and Cat 5 cabling, and maybe some fans, because we're going to need this at the meetup. So once again, at Home Server Show on Twitter, if you'd like to follow me, at John Stutzman for Mr. Microserver, John Stutzman. Chris Kinney, you are at CSKENNEY on Twitter. Please follow these guys, and you can find the average guy, Mr. Jim Collison, at J Collison, and you can find us all on the forums. Please jump out there, visit us, and don't forget those RSVPs to that meetup. This has been the Home Server Show. It is May 29th. This has been episode number 225. Thanks for listening. Thanks for reading, and we will see you back here in a week or two. Thanks again. Talk to you later.